You're listening to The Conversation with Model Mind AI, a weekly check-in with Angela Schultz and Loren Horsager on how to lead through change, stay curious, and get AI ready.
Podcast from Model Mind about how artificial intelligence is reshaping the way we work, lead, and think. I'm Angela Schultz, curriculum developer and trainer here at Model Mind. Let's kick things off with a little scenario. You have $5,000 to invest in AI for your company. Would you rather spend it on software licenses or the latest AI tool? Or would you invest it in training, helping your team get the most out of the tools they already have? Now, I bring this scenario to you because the truth is tools matter. We can't deny that. But training matters more. So because without the right tool and structure, even the best AI tools sit underused, misused, or quietly abandoned. So that's why today we're diving into track 2 of our AI Readiness Framework, People and Training. We're talking about how to build AI literacy across your organization, why it matters, what it looks like, and when it's done well, and how to create a culture where your people actually want to learn and to lead with AI. So joining me again today is Model Mind CEO, Loren Horsager. Welcome, Loren.
Thanks, Angela. It's great to be here today. I just want to just take a moment. So today, talking about training is really exciting because Angela is definitely an expert in this. She does most of our training classes, and I get to read all the responses from people on this. So I think we have a lot to share today on kind of the perspective and things, but I think we offer the best training. So this is what we do. We do AI training. We have the best training out there, and Angela is a big part of that. So I think this is going to be a fun conversation. Hopefully people understand the value of training coming out of this and why we're so focused on training people up.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons we're so successful at this is half of my day I spend training, but the other half of my day is researching and experimenting and exploring myself, because to keep up with this is a full-time job. So having that support system from outside of your company can be really, really, really valuable.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. I like to always get your mind thinking a little bit, Loren. So I have a few stats I want to throw at you today. I recently read an article out of the Business Insider where they surveyed 50,000 people. And I want to see how accurate you are, close you are to judging what percentage of people said that they admit they hide AI use from their employer. How many people do you think are hiding?
I think it's got to be pretty high because we hear stories all the time that people are using it. Maybe there's a tool they're not supposed to use, but they use it because it gets the job done, right? And so this is a nightmare for IT people managing it, but it is happening, and we need to acknowledge that and then figure out how to solve that problem. So I would say high 80s%. Yeah, I think it's really high.
Judging by what I see in training, I would agree with you. This particular article out of these 50,000 said over half, it was closer to 60% that admitted they were hiding it. But what I'm noticing is people are either afraid to, so they don't touch it, or on the down low, they're using it because it's helping them kind of relieve some of the pressure from their workflow. So yeah, hiding it is a real issue. If you are in the leadership role or the owner of this company, you do not want people to hide. And we can dive into some of the risks that are involved with that later, but that's not a good idea. It also creates a culture of that lacks any type of shared experience, right? So that's a no-go. How many people do you think believe that AI will deliver benefits at work? Like they really have bought into it and they think it could do a lot of work with them, for them, and benefit the company overall?
I think this number is also pretty high, but I will tell you the flip side of this is also like 100% is. So I would say it's maybe 80% on this, but there is 100% of people that are afraid of it at the same time. Rightfully so, because of the transition in jobs and stuff. And we've talked about that some in past conversations, but everybody is concerned about that process. And I was thinking about this morning, having a conversation with someone. The problem there is, like, ultimately a lot of the reports we see are, okay, some jobs are going to go away, but other jobs are going to get created, and it's close to a wash to some degree, but the actual positions change, right? And it's not all, I was in a meeting on Wednesday, and the interesting takeaway was it's not all entry level jobs, right? I was talking to a guy who basically got rid of his CFO, and AI is doing the work, a lot of the work of the CFO, and he has another accounting person kind of doing the functional stuff. So it's a high level position that has gotten rid of, um, because it provides timely reports, accurate reports, consistent reports, and he just uploads the data, and he knows how to prompt for that now to get this report that he wants every week, and he can do it a lot more efficiently and a lot more cost effectively. So it's not just the ability to remove, entry level jobs. It's the ability to change a lot of jobs. So there's a high level of concern about that. But I think there's also an expectation across the board that it is going to affect, positively impact in a lot of ways, most businesses.
And I think if you are afraid as an employee of potentially losing your job or being replaced, I think taking some training, becoming fluent in AI is going to build your skill set and just protect that job security even more if you can bring that to the table. So it being proactive and seeking out this information can be really helpful long term for you. Okay. You were absolutely right. 70% of employees that were surveyed here believe that AI will deliver benefits at work. But I think that the surprising statistic here that I'm going to end with is that 28% have had no formal or informal training. So it's interesting to me that the training piece is really lost, and it's really put on the employees to learn themselves as they go, and bringing in that outside person who has the knowledge and the experience of how to connect this training to your workflow, to your work case. How can we use this in the construction industry? How can we use this in the banking fields, right? So being able to have that knowledge of actually putting it to use can be really powerful.
So I have a question. As you're going through training, why do you think it is that a lot of companies aren't training their employees? So they're rolling out AI solutions, whether it's ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini or whatever the solution is, but they're not really providing training. And I'm curious what your thoughts are. Why do you think that's the case?
I mean, the simplest answer is time and money, right? It takes time to invest into a new concept, a new tool, and we're all crunched for time right now. But I also think financially, it's cheaper to have your employees just to add that task onto your employee's plate. But if there's real value behind it, if you believe that this is going to impact your company, then investing not only in the tool, but also into the time and the trainer, I think is where then your employees start feeling more confident. But baking in that support is so important. But I think most people are just expected to click the new button that appears on their computer. We're seeing Copilot everywhere, and now people will add Copilot as a subscription to their Microsoft accounts, but just clicking that button isn't really showing you the underlying value. In trainings, I use an image of an iceberg, and that first click on that Copilot button may show you what's above the surface, but having an expert come in and show you the nuance and the real capabilities of this powerful AI tool is what lies below the surface, right?
Mhm.
And creating a space for people to explore and experiment and make mistakes and ask stupid questions, right? Like this is what lies below the surface. Um, and I think people get hung up on the fact that it can do a single task like respond to an email. But you and I know it's so much more than that, than just a content creation. But that's what I hear when people are coming in for the first time. They have very limited access to uh, also paid features.
Yeah.
So often they're using free accounts, right? Where all of these wonderful capabilities aren't available. So that
Right.
can also be a hindrance.
I feel like, you know, any other IT role, like in mid-sized companies, when you're rolling out a new technology, there would almost always be training to go with that. And we see over and over and over again that companies are rolling out Copilot, and maybe they'll give some group access to it initially. And then if they don't use it, they'll give someone else access. They'll move the access around because it's not cheap, right?
Mhm.
But it's also for the value. It's really not that expensive, but you have to use it, and people don't know how to use it for these things other than, oh, I can edit an email. Well, I know what I want my email to say. Why do I need to even do that? Some people, maybe if you're not a good writer, that's an effective thing, but for a lot of people, that's a pretty basic step, right? But how
Mhm.
can you do these more complicated solutions that if you're trained on it, you can really have a big impact, right? So we talk to people after training. I think it's interesting. We were doing an experiment with a company in Florida where we did some training for them on Copilot, and they were tracking usage before and after. And it hasn't been enough time to really
Mhm.
compare this yet, but the numbers are definitely going up. So we're trying to figure out like how can we effectively train people so that they get the usage up, because we know if they get the usage up, the efficiencies that they start to gain go up quite significantly. And
Mhm.
if you can do that in teams, like as a whole team, which we're going to talk a little bit about today, now the value of that team just got much more efficient. We have a company we've been working with for a while that they have actually while they're growing, they are not hiring some new people because their teams become more efficient using AI. We talk about hopefully AI saves you an hour a day once you go through training if you're fully invested in this. And I think that in a lot of positions, that's actually a doable efficiency expectation. And so it's just a matter of getting there. But we just have, I feel like we're in a weird place. And I think part of the challenge for adding training is everybody's like, well, you can talk to it. So like the natural language kind of hurts us in that way, that we don't need to be trained because I can just go talk to it. But people aren't efficient. They don't know how to use it. They don't know what ideas to use it on unless they get some training. So I find that interesting. Then when people go through our classes, they're like, oh, I didn't know I could do that, right? And so now you get deeper and deeper into solving different types of problems, and you get more of that efficiency out of it. So the tool plus the training is really where this works, right? And now you have your
Mhm.
teams trained up. I think the other interesting aspect of that is once your teams are trained, they're the ones identifying new opportunities where AI can come into your organization and actually, provide radical efficiencies in things. So that's the value of training them up. If you don't provide that training, they're not going to use it, and then you don't identify these solutions that could have a bigger impact.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You make a good point about it being accessible because of the use of natural language and not coding. But I find our most popular class is just our AI 101, which is really an entry level class. And sometimes people will come with no knowledge. And then other times people will say, oh, I've been using it for years, right? You've got the whole spectrum of people. But there, for every single person in class, there always comes that moment where they're like, I had no idea it could do this, right? So
Mhm.
that mixed group of teammates where have all different backgrounds in it can really be elevated together and kind of have that shared experience, which is creating a common language for your team as well, which
Mhm.
will help build some of that momentum and make it stick if they have a shared experience and a common language that they can use. But I do I heard you say it'll save an hour a day, and that's a bit of a mantra we have, right? Like, I promise you, if you spend some time with us, I can make your day better, more enjoyable, and hopefully lighten the load a little bit. But beyond that, I had a recent student who made a comment about it not saving an hour. She actually said, "You've changed my life," right? Like the it's just changes the way we work, the way we think. And that's really what a true powerful training experience isn't going to help you um, expedite a task. It should really change the way you think and operate when using AI. And
Mhm.
so it's just super rewarding because I know the grind, right? I know how hard people are working. So to see the results after even just a single day of training is so powerful. It's rewarding to be in this position right now. It's fun to teach this new technology and make it accessible and
Mhm.
make it effective.
Yeah. The other thing I think we see is that with training, we have people come to our training and they've been using it for a while, but they use it for a specific thing, and that's kind of their world of it. And I think it's amazing when you can start to show them new use cases that just blow their minds, like, wow, I didn't know it can do this, right? And so that's the
Mhm.
value of training. And now, if you have that common language as a team where you're all thinking about this way, now you can start to solve bigger problems with this beyond just chat solutions, right? How do we
Mhm.
automate solutions? How do we build out more sophisticated AI to actually do certain processes? But all the while, we're trying to train people up because we want the human in the loop concept, right? Where
Mhm.
humans are leading this, guiding this, and managing this. And you need humans that understand the business process, but you need humans that understand the AI and how to think about this, right? So I
Mhm.
think that's an interesting aspect of where we're at when technically this is a technology, right? And it's just implementing
Mhm.
technology. But it feels so different from that because it's this natural language capability that we get to talk to it. But when we start building more sophisticated solutions, it's just a technology solution again. And so we have to
Mhm.
think about this and understand this from a full technology platform perspective. So
Mhm. I will say, if I were to give any words of wisdom when companies are looking at training up their employees, one of the biggest mistakes you can make is sending a single employee to the training and then expecting that singular employee to come back and either educate everyone or to build a culture and a momentum. There's some research that shows anywhere between 25 to 33% of your team really needs to get on board with the training from the ground floor, and then that is enough of a percentage of your group to really kind of tip the momentum and change the culture. And so my favorite is when I've got a handful of people from the same company in all different roles. I've got HR, I've got a developer, all these different roles coming together, but it just creates this real positive excitement around it. And then that's when you get the powerful change that occurs in your company, is when you get enough people to go through this training to build a culture and a climate of positivity and excitement.
yep.
Can be really fun.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. So you are a curriculum development person and you do training. Let's talk about like what does great AI training look like? And
Mhm.
obviously from our perspective, but also other industry perspectives, like what do you think is the key components that make up great AI training?
Oof. I think it's twofold. I think you have to prioritize as a leader in your company to allow people to step away from their day in and day out grind and just be present for some real effective training. Now, personally, I think watching a video or reading an article doesn't allow the learning to really develop and grow. I think having me in there, whether it be online or in the room, allows them to process new information, but also to hear ideas and learn from one another, and then also ask the questions in real time. So being able to step away from their day and be present is so powerful. And I think having me as the interpreter or the middle person between them and the technology is really important too. I really kind of bake in that support throughout the training and then also after the training. So just to give you an idea, at Model Mind, we do several different structures of training. One of them that we're working in right now is I meet with a cohort online once a week for an hour, and I'm introducing new concepts from how to use Copilot. But then outside of training, because that's really just informative, outside of training, then we have office hours once a week as well, where they can bring their task, their real world examples. I'm meeting with somebody after this because they're trying to build out a PowerPoint for a big board meeting that's coming up on Monday. So they've learned about Copilot, but now during office hours, we can actually go through and I can support them through applying what they've learned in Copilot. So I think the balance between not only the training, but the supportive time as well is key. We've also, one of our most popular trainings in Orlando, I go 3 weeks in a row and people come for 3 hours. We spend a half a day together once a week. But this allows a little bit of practice and preparation and experimentation before they return the following week. And it's so fun to see the evolution of the first day of class. Of course, everybody's a little nervous, a little apprehensive. They don't know what to expect. When we come back the second week, it is hard to get class started on time because everybody has questions. Everybody's sharing what they did throughout the week. So I love kind of staggering the courses throughout the week. That can be also a really powerful idea just to build that momentum and to reinforce. An analogy I've used in class or with companies who are considering training is the idea of it without reinforcement, without the office hours or the coming back for the next level of training. It's like planting a seed and then never watering it, right?
Mhm.
It's not going to grow. It's not going to um, bloom and become this wonderful thing if you don't support it along the way. So it can't be a one and done situation. And I will say that the office hours um, have become one of my favorite parts of the week.
Mhm.
Uh, that's where people really start to ask the good questions that change how they think and how they operate. So support, we all need it. And that's
Yeah.
such an important piece
I,
of
th- I think
building.
that's interesting. So if we kind of categorize that, so I think you're right that there has to be a commitment to training
Mhm.
and the time. One of the challenges is, oh, I don't have time to do that, and we've worked on a variety of different courses in order to make that happen. Our Copilot one is a good example where it's just 1 hour a week, right? And a lot of times we'll do that over lunch hour. And the other piece I think is really important is in applying it, right? You have to do exercises. So we always require people to you have to have
Mhm.
whatever we're training on, you have to have the software and then bring your laptop to class. And you have to be able to do this in class. And if you can't do that, it's not really effective training. So what I always say is, going through training isn't what matters. It's going through how to apply this to the tasks that you're doing. That's where this gets interesting. And that's where it becomes repeatable and usable and you build that efficiency. Going and learning something for the sake of learning it doesn't really change anything. It's when we go apply that we actually get to see the results of it, right? Which is, I think, why office hours are so interesting because that's the application. People are now, I want to actually do this, what I learned in class. I'm doing this at work, and it's 2 weeks after class. Can I still get some help to figure out because I can't quite get this to work, right? That's where engaging with you or others on our office hours is a very, very interesting solution.
That's a good point. Yes, absolutely. I am not standing up there for 6 hours lecturing on AI, right? Yeah, that is the opposite of what we want. And just to give you a quick example, usually I'll introduce an activity that we'll do together, whether it be, similar to our prompt of the week, right? That'll just be the starting point. But the cool part about using something like ChatGPT or Copilot is I can introduce a group prompt, but then we can immediately personalize it and customize it to that person's experience and what that person's need is within their role. So we can introduce and then they can quickly adjust it to meet their needs.
Mhm.
So they're actually making those applications and connections in class. So it's not separate or oh, it worked in class, but not at work, right? We're actually embedding it into the trainings, which can
Yeah.
be, that's where people get buy-in because they see those immediate results of, I can do this, I could do this all day, right? This is going to change the way I work.
I think one of the things I like about our training is that like it is that application. So one of the things we've done, and you're really good at this in class, is here's the concept. Now let's go out and apply this to you, right? So we
Mhm.
actually have classes of people that are doing very different things, and they're all in the same class, but they can pick. We have about 16, 18 different use cases that we'll go through, depending on the class and what we're trying to teach, right? So things from the simple example everybody kind of thinks about is writing or content development for marketing. And we can use that as a use case. And we have examples to show how to think about that, things to do, things not to do that are specific to that. But we also have classes like how to think about this as writing a grant as a nonprofit agency, right? That turned
Mhm.
out to be a hugely successful one when we've worked with nonprofits, or EOS, Entrepreneurs Operating System, how to work with EOS or Traction, as people might have known it, as a business management process. Well, how can you use AI in that process to help navigate and think about problems and solutions and manage your EOS process? We have a whole use case on that you can apply as your use case in class, which our goal is, again, learn the AI basics, but learn how to apply this to your specific area, right? And that's where it
Mhm.
gets really interesting.
I hadn't thought about that. I see myself as an AI trainer, but what I'm just realizing is in every training session, I'm getting insights into how different companies in Minnesota or in Florida are using and operating with AI. So every person I meet, I'm actually acquiring some a library of use cases.
Mhm.
So this is how a marketing person has used it. This is how all the nonprofit people are using. So you're right. Not only do we have the AI knowledge, but we've worked with so many different roles in companies that we're also bringing that knowledge to class about how other people are successfully implementing AI tools in the workplace. So that
Yep.
is that is a powerful piece to kind of bring that into the training as well.
And just to set up the future, we are going to be interviewing some of these people on the podcast going forward and talking about specific use cases for different industries. So stay tuned for that once we get through our assessment series here. And hopefully that will be helpful for people to think about like how to apply this, because that's the question I get all the time is how do I apply this? What is the use case that matters to the different people that are going through this? And I think we're getting better at helping guide people to different use cases and show them what's possible with those use cases. But our clients that we work with are also helping identify, like, can I do this? And then we have to think through how to solve that problem with AI. And we get really interesting things, right? Let's just share a story. So we're working with a company in Orlando, and this gal's like, this is really complicated. I have this really complicated process. I need to figure out how to price my units that I make, and they're all customized, and people can order these, and it's a quick thing, but it's very complicated, and it's really timed in seconds of how long does this step take, this step take, this step take, and it takes 2 minutes to build up a new kit, and that's sets the cost for this product, right? Well, they're doing this all the time. Well, it turns out that going through our class, and learning how to use AI with a set of rules around all these processes, and just asking the AI in a very simple process. Like, this is not a custom AI model or anything. It's just a custom GPT and ChatGPT. She can actually do those with a high degree of accuracy in chat very, very quickly, in minutes, rather than and it builds out a nice Excel model to put everything into Excel at the end of it. But it's done accurately and quickly and easily, where even less technical people can now actually run this process to build out new products for them, which is pretty interesting. And this is where people don't quite understand, like, I have this problem, and it would be great if AI could solve it, but I don't know how AI can solve it, right? So going through the classes and picking out their use cases and talking that through with an instructor, talking that through in office hours, is a valuable way to actually figure out your implementation of this.
And a perfect example of what you just said, like sharing of that knowledge and of what they're doing to be successful. We often will train a company, but we also have what are called open classes. And we should almost call them networking opportunities, because what's happening is somebody will be in class and share that exact story. And then what it turns into is this networking event where people are are sharing ideas and what's worked for them. And by lunchtime, usually the business cards start flowing and everybody starts connecting, and I've got to connect you with our marketing team, and it really does become this kind of community event where
Mhm.
you end up not only learning about AI, but networking and adding people to your community that can kind of support you along the way and lift you up and share ideas. I'm finding that people are the ones who are excited about this are so willing to share what they're doing and
Yeah.
how they're doing it, that it brings a lot of energy to the class, and insight. So
Yeah.
opportunities beyond just learning a task, right? You're actually meeting people and learning from one another, which can be a real bonus after
Yeah.
taking the class.
So let's keep moving here.
Sure.
What do you think is like, once people go through the training, and like you said, it's great if you can get multiple people for an organization to go through the training. Uh, how do they keep the momentum going? How do they make this what's the impact 6 months from now, right? How do they
Mhm.
really have an impact on their organization? Talk through some of what you see out there and what works as a way to continue to bring people into, number one, what's changing, because I know
Right.
you spend a ton of time updating our courses
Mhm.
weekly because everything changes, right? But
Mhm.
how are people that have gone through the training able to handle some of this and continue to apply it and come up with new ideas and share that with their team?
Yes. Oddly enough, your timing on this question is perfect, because right before we hopped on, Copilot now has something called scheduled prompts. And so I'm meeting with one of my cohorts for the last time. And so I'm kind of sending them off on their own to use what we've learned in class. So the final activity in class is that we are scheduling prompts in Copilot. And the prompt we're going to schedule is to provide us with tips and tricks and what's the latest news in AI. And so we can schedule these prompts to be sent out once a week. We can repeat them for the next 10 weeks. So I'm really trying to set people up to continue the conversation that we started in class. So that's kind of a little tech tip that I can think of, that just popped up on Copilot this week. But other than that, as a leadership to keep the training going, I find that in class, usually there'll be what we call power users that kind of come to the surface. And they're people who are just naturally inclined to kind of take on a new idea and run with it. So if you can empower a few people within your group to be a support system for others, that is really helpful, because that's that human connection to the tech tool, right? You need that supportive person. But more than anything, it's creating a culture of willingness to fail and be vulnerable and to share their experiences. And so modeling kind of this idea of what stumbles did you make and how did you use AI to overcome it? Just creating those conversations, but absolutely making it a priority. And I would say the number one thing I hear employees say is that if they schedule time, it has to be intentional, right?
Mhm.
And so scheduling time that allows your employees to experiment, because otherwise they're going to fall back into their old habits. If the person I mentioned earlier, we're going to work through a PowerPoint presentation together. They've created PowerPoint presentations for years. They have some habits built around it, but they're trying to change the way they think and change the way they work. And the first couple times, I've heard this comment, the first is the worst, right? So the first time using Copilot to create these PowerPoints, may take longer, but they know and trust it in the long run. It will benefit them, but they've got to get through this hard part first. So carving out intentional time for your employees can be really, really powerful. And then keep the training going. Like I said, if you tried something this week and it didn't work, try it next week, because this technology is changing daily. And
Mhm.
so being able to stay current and stay connected with somebody like us at Model Mind, where that's our full-time job, is to be aware and educated on what's happening tomorrow. And so we can be ready for it and kind of prep. It also keeps the energy going, right? Every time they release a new feature, a new model, it can it's easier for them to be comfortable trying it because they've already tried these other 10 features. And so it just
Mhm.
becomes a really natural way to keep things going for people. And I honestly, if you do one thing for your company, it's giving them access to AI where they can ask questions. People are so hesitant to maybe ask a dumb question or something they asked last week they don't want to ask again. I use this with you, Lauren, all the time. There are times that you are doing a demo for us, and the funniest thing that happens is it's always an acronym, right? Every industry has their set of acronyms. And so as you're rattling off these acronyms, I am absolutely on ChatGPT in real time, in the meeting, asking stupid questions about what does this acronym mean in this use case, right? And so being kind of creating that curiosity in your employees, but then giving them a tool to follow through on their curiosities and learn as they go. I mean, this is priceless if they know how to use it.
Yeah. I think here's a product idea for somebody out there. I think
Sure.
we need a tool like in Teams where it transcribes, right? As we're talking,
Yes.
I think we need a tool that says, "What did he really say?"
Right. A translator, right? Yes. Yes.
So I love that feedback. I think you're spot on. Like as I think about some of the organizations we work with, the ones that have made this a long-term benefit are the ones that have given them the time to actually do this. But they've taken these power users and now, as an example, every week when they have their team meeting, so each team in the organization, these are large organizations, each team is expected to spend 15 to 30 minutes having people share out how they used AI this week, right?
Yes.
And it seems maybe kind of dumb, but it's so powerful because it actually, number one, opens up ideas for other people to use it. Number two, people that are a bit skeptical or don't really want to participate in it, they see, hey, they're all getting their job done either easier by doing this. I needed to do this. So it helps drive that adoption. But mostly it helps you find these efficiencies and find ideas, and people will have conversations that it's like, oh, if we can do it over there, can we do this here? And this would really save us more time and solve this problem in a bigger way, right? And so now you have teams of people that are genuinely trying to help the business by building out better solutions. But you have this kind of power user in each team, hopefully, that is kind of helping guide the process. But all it is have a a 15 to 30-minute conversation every week about what people are doing and share. We do this in our team. So Angela or I or other people will actually share every week. We share something about what we're seeing, and we're in kind of this crazy rat race where we're trying to be on the top of everything. And it's a little bit crazy because things come and go, and we're in it for the ride. Where that's not really the objective, I think, for most organizations. But find the tools that work. That's changing at a less rapid pace now. A lot of this. I had a conversation last week. I was down in Florida and I was meeting with and presenting at a few places. One of the things I think is interesting now, we're aware that AIs are good and they're going to keep improving, but they're good. It's now a matter of us knowing how to prompt and how to use the tools to actually integrate with them. So I think what that means is we have to be less concerned about the changes. Like the average person doesn't care necessarily about the change. They have to know that this is changing and there's times when it will impact them, but it's less important. And when there's changes, like we just seen some massive Copilot improvements, right? And they're genuine improvements that are actually positively improving everybody that's been using it. And that's what we're seeing. We're not seeing kind of the ups and downs like we were for a while with some of these tools. So I think that's great. But if you can meet weekly and share, those are two critical things in order to make this part of your culture.
Actually, that reminds me of a story. I had a group of people from the same company, and we had done a prompting class that was summarize my work week in the style of a comedy roast. And they shared it with everyone. And it was a Copilot feature because basically I was trying to show that Copilot can access your Teams, your email, right? It really can be embedded into your entire Microsoft suite. And so we used this, but it had a little twist to it. And they went and shared it with everybody. And so what they did is they created what they called a prompt library. And so they were kind of recording all of these prompts from class. And then that was going to be their share out each week, is they were going to not only have it be a prompt that could show an example of how it could help the employee, but also it created this kind of water cooler conversation in the hallways where people were sharing their responses and meeting at lunchtime and having a conversation. So it was just a really great way to, like you said, keep the training going, but also make it accessible for people who are maybe on the fence or not sure where to start. Because the power of a tool like ChatGPT can almost be overwhelming at times. So that made it kind of a nice prompt, a starter prompt for people to try.
On that note, let's get into your prompt of the week. Every week you
Sure.
give us a prompt of the week. What's this week's prompt of the week?
Well, I heard this new term called a meta prompt, and it's something I've been doing for a long time, but I thought the name meta prompt was kind of exciting. So we're actually going to create a prompt that will generate more prompts for us. So here it is. I always like to start by kind of defining the role, right? So I'm going to say act as an AI adoption coach. I want to spark safe, honest conversations with my team about AI. Here's where the meta prompt comes in. Give me 3 prompts I can use to uncover interest, fears, and curiosity. Make one playful. For example, would you rather get free lunch or a ChatGPT Pro subscription? And make one practical. Include a way to follow up based off of what they share. So that's a pretty expansive prompt, but you can see how we're adding in some humor to make it accessible. Your employees, you want them to learn, right? But you want them to want to learn. So making it playful, but actually giving you some prompts to get you started is going to help you to kind of take the temperature of where your team is at. Are they ready for this? Do you need to start at the beginning? Can you leapfrog to the middle? So this is a great way to start the conversation and get insight into your team and what they're really thinking.
Fantastic. I love it.
And just so you know, Lauren, I would pick the ChatGPT subscription over free lunch.
I know. I think our whole team would. That's why we're here.
Oh,
But yeah, that's fantastic. I think that's interesting. One of the challenges that we run into is I can't quite get the prompt right? But what you just talked
mhm.
about, the whole point is use the AI to help you improve your prompt as well. So if you tell the AI what you want to do, it will help you craft how to solve that. Or even what should I use AI on? Talk about your job and have a conversation with chat and then ask it that question. And I think you'll be blown away by some of the suggestions. Some of the suggestions will be terrible, and some of them will be not implementable or easily implementable, but some of them will be, and that's the cool thing, right? So it's just like anything else. When you're generating ideas, some ideas are bad, and so you have to um, give AI that grace, I guess I'd call it, that it can have bad ideas too. But
Mhm.
it can generate good ideas if we continue to prompt it and drive that conversation with it. So love that.
Yeah, it's a great way. If I have somebody who is brand new to this technology, that's often what I encourage them to do for the first couple activities is to just say, I am an HR team lead. Give me 10 prompts that I should use in my
Yep.
role.
Right.
So it just kind of shows them what's possible, right? It's a great starting point. If you're I just want to, before we go, I really, this is kind of my world that I live in is the training and meeting with these people and sharing these experiences. So I just really want to emphasize that um, besides the time I spend supporting teams or training on AI, it's really valuable to know and recognize that the other half of my job is to do the research and to find those ways to connect and apply what we're doing. And it is moving so fast. And I think it's a lot to ask your team to stay on top of alone. So bringing in outside support like uh, Model Mind or myself can make a really big difference. We can take off the pressure. We can curate to meet specific to your needs and really help your people grow with confidence because learning in isolation is so difficult. But when you can have that experience together and there's support alongside of it, it can be really, really powerful. Um, so I hope that today has given you great ideas about how to embed this training opportunity along with AI tools.
Fantastic. So I just want to reiterate the whole point of today's conversation is, this is one of the 6 tracks of our AI readiness assessment, is employee training. But there's 5 others out there. We talked last week about AI governance. Next week, we are going to talk about data infrastructure, and we have the rest of the 6 coming up here. So um, I think if you're interested in doing the assessment, this is something we provide for free and is on our website. So go out to the website and you can sign up your team. It's a 360 assessment, so you can do like 5 people, have them all complete. The 35 questions, it's 35 questions, maybe takes 15 to 20 minutes to do it. But then we use that to help. We use it in our coaching process. So we have our AI 10X, where we come alongside organizations and help them build solutions and more than just chat solutions, right? So how do you build out automations and agentic systems and all the things we'll talk more about in the future. But we come alongside organizations and we provide our training as part of that process. We also provide our training standalone, and you are welcome. We would love to have you in a future class or train up your organization. So feel free to reach out if that's something you're interested in. But I highly recommend going through our AI readiness assessment. And the goal of that is to touch on these 6 areas that we think are the most important areas to actually successfully implement AI. We approach our coaching program in a quarterly manner. So this assessment really, part of the questions are what's most important to your organization right now. So it helps I lay out like what are the 1 or 2 key tracks that you should focus on for the next quarter. But ultimately, this is a couple-year program that people should be thinking about as they're getting up to speed and implementing AI. It is not something that for most organizations can happen in a quarter or a couple quarters. But you have to start, right? So our goal is to handle all these things and make sure you have a plan in place and start getting to where you want to go to actually become more AI ready. So yeah, hop out on the website, do the AI readiness assessment. If you would like to talk with us, we love talking through this with people. Feel free to schedule. I believe you can do that on the website as well. So, or reach out to us. So, on that note, what's coming up next week, Angela?
Well, next week we are going to do a conversation about data and infrastructure. And I even have a little homework that I'm going to do to prepare for this next one. So I'm going to do my research before we meet again, but hopefully we'll help you get ideas on how to organize your systems, tools, and information so you can scale safely and successfully inside your organization. So thanks again for listening to the conversation, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for being part of the conversation with Model Mind AI. Until next time, keep leading, keep learning, and stay curious.